My name is Jonathan Ezer. I'm one of Cardata's account executives here, and today we'll be discussing field service and medical device teams. I'm joined by Megan, one of our senior account executives. Megan, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for being here with me today, Jonathan. My name is Megan Dean. I am a senior account executive here at Cardata. I've been here for just about 7 years now, so I'm really excited to engage in conversation here today, chat through some field service details and vehicle reimbursement programs and how they all kind of work together and relate. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, great. So yeah, today we're gonna run through some questions here, just openly about as we talk about field service and medical device teams, and going into more about how Cardata actually will work with those groups to implement vehicle reimbursement programs. So just to start us off, what are some typical tasks that involve vehicle travel in field service work?
Yeah, really great question. It spans many industries, right? Field service work, but I'd say that the tasks are a direct reflection of whatever industry you might be thinking of. So you'll see you'll see field service workers completing assigned installations and service routes in an efficient manner. You'll see them going out to troubleshoot products for required or requested repairs. You'll see field service reps following company inventory and tracking procedures. So they're going to check on, you know, the number of products that we have and what needs to be tracked and what needs to come through. Um, you'll see field service people routinely going out to change water filters, check water lines, clean and sanitize. There's so many different activities, yeah, that span all these industries. I'd say retail too.
So you mentioned retail, but can you give some examples of some other industries that maybe rely on field service work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see oil and gas, any companies that are involved in exploration, refining, petrochemicals in remote locations, HVAC companies, IT service providers, even facilities management companies that are going to be organizations managing office buildings, apartment complexes, and other facilities. The retail is really a big one. You know, retailers will be utilizing field service workers for tasks like sales system installations, product demonstrations, inventory management at various locations. The HVAC and those types of industries are going to be more like coming to install and maintain and repair in commercial residential buildings. So it really does span a variety of industries.
Wow. So it definitely sounds like it's not one size fits all when it comes to having people in the field doing different works, if it's technicians or even potentially sales reps, it sounds like for a variety of these businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll also see healthcare industries, specifically medical device, manufacturing companies, industries like automotive, equipment installations, repairs, maintenance. It's pretty vast.
Definitely. So what are some common vehicle mobility challenges faced by field service workers? So we have a bunch of industries here all doing different types of work, but same framework. So what would be some of the biggest challenges when it comes to vehicle mobility?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I'd see it as twofold. You know, It depends on, for one, the type of vehicle program that the drivers are on or that the company has implemented. So challenges in relation to, if they're on a traditional allowance, are going to be different challenges than if they're in a fleet vehicle. There's also location challenges that drivers are going to face regardless of the type of program that they're on, right? So if they're needing to get from A to B and the distance is vast, that challenge is just organic and lies in itself.
Wow. Okay. So definitely a variety of issues that exist there. So would you say the drivers are maybe voicing their concerns to their management or leadership that they're struggling with how much they're getting paid for some of their distances they're going?
Oh, certainly. That's a really good question. I'd say especially if drivers are in a personal vehicle and they're just getting an allowance, they're losing on tax waste, and the costs or the reimbursement that they're receiving may not adequately cover the spend that they're incurring. So then that introduces a bit of a fair and equitable element to the program, and should likely be looked at and reviewed to brought up to standards.
Okay, so definitely some things that can be fixed for those workers that maybe are getting taxed on their allowance. Shifting gears a bit here, we see technology becoming such a hot topic in today's society. So, how has technology such as field service management software impacted the efficiency of field service work?
In our industry specifically, the technology that's used today for mileage capture and vehicle reimbursement is essentially a GPS application that lives on the driver's phone. So, you're moving away from manual entries, you're moving away from recording pen and paper in your vehicle and then bringing over to an Excel spreadsheet, or then, entering into an expense platform, right? So you're seeing a lot more automation through the technology that in turn is going to make the drivers' lives easier, streamline their day accordingly, and give them back some valuable time.
Wow. So, I mean, with technology, obviously, can come some downfalls. With you mentioned app tracking. With car data, you know, how does that tracking actually work? How do they make sure that all trips are being tracked and making their lives easier?
The application that we have is a GPS app, so it works with the motion of the vehicle and essentially follows the driver from trip A to B and throughout their day. So they're easily able to identify business trips and personal trips within the application. Now, all of that data, all of that mileage data that's collected is stored in our cloud portal. And that cloud portal is really designed for managers and administrators to review mileage and be able to reimburse accurately and fairly based on where these drivers live and fuel costs in their area. So, that's our number one goal is to reimburse fair and accurate through the use of technology, this mobile application tracking mileage, and then through the use of the reporting and analytics in the cloud portal. Now, it's really beautiful because with the accurate data, also that we're going to use to facilitate reimbursements, also brings soft features like business intelligence that managers and administrators can then use to identify gaps in their workforce. If they see a driver A is calculating and logging 50,000 business miles a year, they may say, okay, we need to add additional bodies to this territory. We need to bring in, more employees so this particular driver doesn't have so much windshield time and is getting more time in the field, more time doing what he needs to do at each of his locations, whether it's medical device, whether it's HVAC, right? You want your drivers, you want your field service people in the field actively and not just exclusively on the road.
It's almost like you read my mind in terms of how vehicle reimbursement programs in the context of field service software can actually work. So if you could maybe dive a little bit deeper into how do vehicle reimbursement programs benefit field service technicians and sales representatives specific to this industry?
We're going to ensure that the drivers are getting reimbursed for their business mileage, right? So in a vehicle reimbursement program, drivers are in their personal vehicles and they're getting reimbursed for the business use of their personal vehicles. So when we build a VRP, we build what's called a vehicle profile, and we take into account the type of vehicle required for the role, right? And drivers are reimbursed on that type of vehicle. If they're in a retail role and maybe they just require a mid-sized sedan to get from A to B, that's what we'll likely build the vehicle profile on. And the regional sensitivities will follow based on where they live and based on fuel costs in their area. So fairness and equitability is one of the key pillars in a vehicle reimbursement program.
When it actually comes to the medical device industry itself, how does field service contribute there? What type of roles are specifically the field service representatives, doing for the medical device industry when they're on the job?
Yeah, I think, medical device is a vast industry itself, right? There's a lot of different different medical companies and device companies out there that have different requirements, certainly, but broadly speaking, um, we often see field service reps in med device out specifically installing product, installing um, machinery to be able to be used. We'll see med device people going out to troubleshoot. You know, they'll be in a surgery room, live with the doctor, live in surgery, ready to adjust a machine if needed. So we'll definitely see a lot of that activity. They play a big role in medicine.
So we see a lot of different, models today in terms of how people are managing their fleets, managing their taxable allowances. When we specifically look at choosing between fleets of cars, that the company will own versus a VRP, what factors should we be considering there?
I'd say that people come to us when they're looking to get out of the car business. And that's not always possible, right? So the fleet definitely has a place in vehicle reimbursements and in the vehicle space. So we'll see fleets that are specially outfitted, trucks that are needing to be heavy duty to be able to tow trailers. Um, Anything that's specially outfitted would not be an ideal company or an ideal prospect for a vehicle reimbursement program. Anything that's logoed or a full vehicle wrap, again, that should stay in fleet, and there's certainly a place for that in the market. We find people that are, driving normal type vehicles, any kind of vehicle that you can take your partner to dinner in. Those are eligible for a vehicle reimbursement program.
We obviously saw over the last few years, being technology, being a big thing up and coming through COVID, lots of issues with procurement. Have you found that clients that you've worked with have had similar issues and that's why maybe they've come over?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different reasons why people transition out of fleet, but you really hit the nail on the head there. Over the past few years, we really have been seeing people make this transition due to allocation, right? The pandemic really set a lot of the vehicle manufacturers back significantly with production, with chip shortages and employees, being available for work. So that trickle down effect is still lasting, and is making it more challenging for companies to source and procure vehicles, even if they don't have unique, strict specifications. A lot of companies that have a fleet maybe have, okay, our whole fleet is going to be made up of white Honda Civics, right? Now all of a sudden you can't get white Honda Civics. So now maybe you can get a white Toyota Corolla instead. Now, maybe you're still going to face sourcing and allocation challenges with that. The other piece that introduces is a bit of a destabilization within the workforce, right? People are now seeing, okay, well, my colleague has this vehicle, but I have this one. So it can start to create disruption there among the employees when there's a varied fleet for no critical reason other than sourcing.
Definitely some big pain points there. The last thing I'll ask maybe about the fleet side of things is I've heard stories of liability issues. Someone might come in, as I've only been here for just under a year now, and we definitely have had some fleet scenarios come through the door because just the scare of either a current accident situation with someone in a company-owned car. Can you maybe expand? Can you expand in that space where where we're seeing groups come over because of liability concerns?
Absolutely, certainly, and that's been historically why people would come over is liability or cost, right? This sourcing allocation is really surfaced during the pandemic. So just as you're suggesting, when a company has a fleet, they own those vehicles or they lease those vehicles. They also take ownership of any accidents and any insurance details that come with that. So catastrophic accidents. If a spouse or a teenage kid takes that fleet vehicle out to the store to get milk and they're in a fender bender or worse, the company is liable for that vehicle and they're liable for the potentially uninsured motorist driving it. So it introduces quite a bit of risk, that's eliminated on a vehicle reimbursement program because it's now the driver's personal vehicle. I'll also speak a little bit to cost, and administration. Is these fleet programs are generally speaking 30% or more to operate than a vehicle reimbursement program, even if you're looking at a net for net vehicle type. So the costs are extremely high and increasing, year over year. Um, the other piece that comes into that is the administrative work. So operating a fleet is a lot of work. And, while we definitely have fleet administration companies out there, there really needs to be an individual at the company side who is managing these cars, the reallocation or the reconditioning or relocation of the vehicles. If there is an accident, purchasing, registration, title, licensing, all falls onto the company. So the administrative work is quite heavy and in turn costly.
Yeah, so lots of things to digest there. A lot of different layers that come into fleet that a company would need to consider. Switching gears a bit. So, not a fleet scenario now. I know there are a lot of companies that have just continued to roll forward with taxable car allowances. Giving a flat rate. Maybe it's $500 for technicians, $700 for sales reps. Other companies doing a little bit differently. But what are the main advantages of now switching from a taxable car allowance to a vehicle reimbursement program?
Yeah, such a great question, and one of my favorite topics when discussing vehicle reimbursement programs is comparing them to their counter allowance part. And it really helps to illuminate the magic of a vehicle reimbursement program because when you pay a traditional allowance, it's taxable. When you move over to a VRP, vehicle reimbursement favor type of program, you're introducing a tax-free element. So 37% tax waste is what we estimate on a traditional allowance program, and that's eliminated on a favor or 463 accountable plan. So it's that piece is really exciting to me, is just ultimately instantly being able to save 37%. In addition to that, you had mentioned, I think, maybe a $600 allowance or a $700 allowance. On a VRP, you're going to take into account regional sensitivities based on zip code. So you're going to be reimbursing somebody fairly and accurately in direct relation to where they live. On an allowance program, if you're giving somebody $600 a month who lives in California and somebody $600 a month who lives in Iowa, their costs are different. It certainly costs the California person more to just own the vehicle, just put it in the driveway, let alone operate it. So a favor program is going to be regionally sensitive down to the zip code. So the rates will fluctuate depending on where the drivers live and their costs that they're going to be incurring.
You mentioned favor. It's the first time we started to go into that. So our fixed and variable rate program. Is there any more to add maybe on the fixed and variable rate program? Or I know there's some other alternatives that we will offer out for jumping onto a vehicle reimbursement program.
Yeah, sure. So at Car Data, we offer three different types of vehicle programs, and as I'd mentioned, Favor is one, and Favor stands for fixed and variable reimbursement. So the fixed costs associated with owning a vehicle, and the variable costs associated with operating. 463 program is otherwise known as the accountable plan or tax-free car allowance. It's very similar to Favor, but has less less rules associated with the program. There's just one compliance measurement, and it's to measure against the IRS standard rate. So it's a really broad program that's can be modified in a variety of different ways to suit the customer. And then we also offer cents per mile programs, the IRS standard rate or below. When we work with clients, we're going to determine, their workforce at a high level, and then we'll start to dig deeper to determine the most appropriate program for that organization. Favor 463 cents per mile. Vehicle reimbursement is not a one size fits all. We build these programs to be unique and adaptable to the client, to the company, because field service workers and really all industries and all workers that are on the road for work have such unique criteria and definitions that they need to do their job that will in turn affect the reimbursement program and the ones that make the most sense.
We've seen other players in the space that are running vehicle reimbursement programs, but what is CarData's difference? What makes, if someone's going to go forward with a vehicle reimbursement program from fleet, from a taxable allowance, what is CarData? How does CarData stand out?
CarData prides itself on our support and service. So we partner with our clients. We don't look at ourselves as a vendor. We look at ourselves as a true partner and a fully outsourced vehicle reimbursement program provider. And what that means is, as I alluded to earlier, this is not a one size fits all. We really work to partner with our clients to make recommendations based on their unique needs. So that begins in an implementation. I mean, I guess it begins in a sales process and then is further outlined in implementation and then brought forward into the relationship for decades long, right? So our customer service team and customer success teams are involved in our implementation process because they're going to be the end servicer to the client. So CarData takes our support pretty seriously, and we live and breathe that every single day. So our team is pretty incomparable when it comes to service.
Awesome. Well, Megan, I really appreciate you taking the time to sort of walk us through a variety of factors from what goes into technicians in the field service work, medical devices, and then going transitioning into a little bit more about what vehicle reimbursement programs are from 463 favor cents per mile, and how CarData actually may work with businesses to make a recommendation and partnership long term. So thanks again. We really appreciate you jumping on to do this, and see you guys next time.
Thank you.